Welcome back to Mark Holbut's vlog, everyone. Thanks for joining in on this beautiful sunshiny kind of a day. It's a great day. Why? Because about 3 or 4 days ago we were minus 30 and today it's about 0. So it's gone about a 30-degree swing within a few days, and now as you can see I'm dressed a little bit more for success. Now the wind's kicking up and the weather's a little bit nice, but I think we're going to take the car because it's time for a little cruise. And today I'm going to talk about, if you guys are fans of ScottY Kilmer, this video might in fact make you cry. But before we get into that conversation, I want to bring up last weekend's comment, which was from Robert Gilbert, who asked the question, do I let the Lamborghini sit or do I start it several times during the year? And I just want to answer quickly, none of my cars, if they're sitting for the year, do I ever start and stop them? Because that in fact is actually the worst thing for your engine, is those frequent start-stops through the wintertime, because a starting of the engine, let it run for a few minutes to warm up and then shut it off, that creates acids in the oil. Those acids then start eating away at bottom end. Rod bearings, oil pumps, all kinds of things start seeing a catastrophe. And as a result, I don't even bother. I make sure also I put the car away with fresh oil, because old oil also has a corrosive effect within the engine, and I make sure that it goes to sleep in the wintertime with fresh oil in it. Pump up the air pressure in the tires and make sure I have a full tank of fuel. Those are some key things you want to make sure you have before you park the car for the winter. So thanks again there, Robert. And be sure, if you guys want to be heard on the next video, you might get a chance. So drop a line in the comment section below, and I may just pick up your comment and talk about it next time. Okay, let's get going. So the fact that you guys are on my channel tells me that you guys are generally car people. And I would say most car people that browse YouTube have heard of ScottY Kilmer. ScottY Kilmer, one of the greatest YouTubers, one of the pioneers to talk and advocate for reliable cars. He's got some strong opinions regarding a lot of the German imports and Jaguars. BMW takes a hit, Mercedes takes a hit. Not a big fan of Audi either. But in fact, I want to talk about that today. So let's get into the Jag and talk about that. So how is the conversation of ScottY even relevant in this channel, in this conversation? Well, mainly because, as you guys can tell, I do enjoy life. I enjoy traveling, family, cars, all of that, friends, everything that means indulging in life and really exploring the fruits of life and what it has to offer. I mean, we all know that life is short. Some people live till their 20s, some people make it to their 50s, some people make it to their 90s. You don't know when your time is up. I've always really believed in living every single day to the fullest. And for me as a car guy growing up, I have always really appreciated owning cars. As you can see in the F-Type here, I truly believe this is one of the finest cars right now money can buy, this side of, about $150,000. I mean, when you get into the hypercar and the high-end supercar realm, of course you're going to find some really cool cars and toys. But I really do believe if you are living within your means and you can afford it, and you are a car person, why would you possibly want to hold yourself back from some of those passions in life? I mean, some people, yeah, they like to indulge in golf, or maybe they like to go fishing, or maybe they like to go for jogs. Whatever that is, that's great. Those are all good things. Where Scotty's concerned, he's always hammering on cars like BMWs and Audis and Mercedes and all of those cars that we car people consider very interesting vehicles to own. Well, he advocates for the simple, reliable, durable vehicle, and there's definitely some truth to that, and nobody wants to drive a piece of junk. I agree. I had a BMW 335, as you guys can probably relate. Last year, I sold that thing, and I bought the F-Type to replace it with. The 335 was just that kind of vehicle that at one point, like, I've got a big risk tolerance. I can tolerate a lot of little repairs, some nickel and dime, some maintenance. I'm not adverse to that, and I'm not resistive to that whole idea. I mean, we have cars, we know they're going to take maintenance. It's no different than you got to brush your teeth, you got to have a shower. If you don't take care of those things, it'll sort of catch up with you eventually, right? But taking care of a car is very important. And so I get that. And driving a premium or a high performance car or even just a standard luxury car is going to cost a little bit more. And where ScottY gets into it, he just takes a full-on approach about destroying the likes of the BMWs and Audis and Benzes and Jaguars. And here we are. I'm sitting in an F-Type myself. And I truly do believe that you should enjoy the passions. Now, I do have a great amount of respect for Scotty. He truly is a pioneer in the YouTube world. He's been around for a while. He's been doing this for quite some time. You know, as a practicing mechanic, he's got a lot of experience. There's certainly something to be said for that level of experience. I don't have that experience. I'm not a mechanic and don't pretend to be. I am a very strong do-it-yourselfer, and I've owned a lot of these cars. But from his perspective, fixing those cars means you're fixing a lot of problems. Problem with that idea, or the idea of where he comes from or his perspective, is that as a mechanic, you're seeing vehicles at their worst. It's no different than a doctor. You usually only go see a doctor if you're not feeling well, right? So the doctor sees you and has that conversation and tries to make you feel better, whether it's medication or, you know, run some tests and diagnosis and does some things for you to get you through that. Whatever it is, it's the same thing there. He's a mechanic. He sees these cars at their worst moment. You don't have a brand new BMW. You're not going to drive it down to your local mechanic and get it repaired. There's no point. And while the failure rate is a little bit higher on some of these cars, absolutely, a lot of it does boil down to neglect or third or fourth owners that just don't take care of them. First owners, there's warranty, their servicing is up to date. Usually the cars are pretty good. You'll notice the one thing that people say, don't buy a BMW after 50,000 or 60,000 miles. And while we know that there is some engineered life in some of these parts, and to Scotty's point, absolutely. There certainly is. I mean, BMW and a lot of their plastic pipes and coolant hoses and gaskets, but every car has gaskets. And, you know, every car uses some form of medium or conduit, if you will, to transport coolant. There's water pumps. I mean, fundamentally, every car is the same, and fundamentally, every car can fail. Cars that he speaks of, Toyotas and Lexus cars, are absolutely impeccable. That is not entirely true. I mean, the fact of the matter is they all fail. If you're a betting guy, absolutely. I mean, obviously a car with more simplicity integrated and a car that doesn't have as much innovation, as much technology, produces less output. They don't include turbos and lower compression ratios. They don't rev as high, and they sell to a different clientele. And often the clientele buying Lexus cars or Toyota cars often don't exercise the cars to the same degree that, say, an overzealous BMW owner might. You get a third owner of a BMW M3. How do you think that guy's going to drive it, or lady, versus, you know, a second owner of a Lexus ES? It's pretty obvious to me the different way that the cars get treated, probably from a maintenance perspective and certainly the way the vehicle's handled. So from where Scotty's coming from, I absolutely agree. There are cars that are inherently more reliable. We know that, Lexus and Toyota, they're almost unbeatable on their own right. But if you put them all in the same venue, and I'll tell you that, I'll share this little story with you because I do believe that I've seen this. I've seen this because I used to autocross. I had Porsches for years, and I would take it out to autocrosses and the odd track day and things like that. And people who own 911s generally drive the cars pretty hard, or they exercise them, they rev them up. Well, I'll tell you right now, a 911 with a dry sump system will likely outlast anything that a Lexus would do. For example, if you took a Lexus RCF out to a racetrack and you ran the wheels off it on an autocross and you bounced off the rev limiter for 3 hours on a given afternoon, I almost guarantee you that will not hold up in the same way that a 911 does. Now, a Jag F-Type like this isn't a track machine. This car is actually really made to be more of a Grand Tourer, high-speed runner. This isn't a track gobbler like a 911 would be, or a Ferrari, or even maybe a Lamborghini. Cars that have dry sump systems inherently are built to be more reliable under adverse and extreme operating conditions. Now, if you're getting in a car, turn the key, drive 2 kilometers, grab that loaf of bread, and you never exceed 2,500 RPM in the entire trip that you go there and back, the Hondas and the Toyotas are certainly going to do better. The engines are more adept to that, lower compression ratios, the power bands are different, the fueling is different. The cars will just take that a lot easier. A high revving engine that needs more fueling, more timing is advanced, on a 911, say a GT3 RS, it's going to get stubborn after a while. Vehicles, Ferraris, like they used to call the old Italian tune-up. You remember the old discussion, the Italian tune-up a car like an old Ferrari or old Lamborghini starts to run a little rough and blowing a little black smoke, and they say, you got to give it the old Italian tune-up, take it out for a run, rev it up to $7,000 a few times, and then you're good to go, and the car just settles out into a nice purr. And there's some truth to that. Those cars are designed for that purpose, whereas the Toyotas and Hondas and Lexuses, Acuras, for the most part, are designed for different application. They're more pedestrian purpose, and they'll drive you to the store in ease, and they're reliable, and they're not stressed, so they will last a long time. So when people say, well, or Scotty, for example, will say, well, a Lexus can last 500,000 miles, there's probably some truth to that. I don't deny that at all, and guaranteed there's probably a good chance that they will. A Porsche 911 GT3 RS probably won't make 500,000 miles, but that car almost rarely goes below 4,000 RPM, and how a normal owner of a GT3 RS runs it. Those cars are driven hard. So the same thing goes with the BMWs and a lot of the Audis and the Benzes, and a lot of them are owned third, fourth owners down the road. Eventually, maybe don't have the funds, don't have the budgets, and don't maintain the vehicles as well as they possibly should. And of course, a lot of those cars are set up more to run in a high performance environment, and they do need a little more attention, and some of them will fail early. And granted, absolutely, to Scotty's point, an N54 engine, that's the 3-liter twin turbo engine that he's actually spoken about on several of his videos. It inherently is a really, really bad design. I think fundamentally it was a great design, and there are some great attributes about the N54. And for example, its forged bottom end, its tunability, twin turbos, there's a lot of capability there for taking it to the racetrack. But sadly, in real world, BMW didn't put together a package that was durable or reliable, and it was just notoriously gross to drive in the sense of spitting codes, power reduction. I mean, to see an engine light on the dash of an N54 like a 335 from, let's say, 2007, 2008, absolutely horrid cars from a maintenance and ownership perspective. They're wonderful to drive, and that's where I come to. Like, I find a nice balance. So if I'm driving a Lamborghini, I own it because it's very exciting. Number one, that's my first priority. The car has to deliver the goods. So that's where I'm coming from. So I will tolerate some of the increased costs for oil change that costs $300 versus, a $39.95 oil change for a Toyota Corolla. But that's the trade-off, right? The clutch I spoke of last week, we knew it cost me 10 grand, but the fact of the matter is, with the kilometers I put on it, the excitement I get out of it, the smiles for miles, if you will, there's so much excitement driving a Lamborghini or a Jag F-Type that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what those costs are. What does matter, though, is if every time you get in the car and you turn it on, there's a new engine light or there's a new leak on the floor. To Scotty's point, I totally agree where he's coming from. It's important to have something that is reliable. And the Jag so far, knocking on wood, has been pretty good. The Lamborghini's been pretty good. I've owned it for 5 years. I've put a clutch in it now. But they're pretty robust. I mean, they're pretty reliable cars. I've got the X5 35D BMW. That's the diesel. It's been actually a workhorse. We've had a few things go on it, but inherently, considering the kilometers we've put on it and the use that it's had and extreme conditions, the extreme colds, extreme hots, family duty, hauling this, that, and the other, it owes us nothing, and it's actually been a great vehicle. So I would absolutely do a diesel X5 again if you could get them. Unfortunately, they don't even make them anymore here in North America. But hey, Scotty, if you're watching, and you're probably not because my channel's way too small for you to care, but just by the chance that you might, hey, full respect there, Scotty. You've done a great thing. You're a pioneer and a legend in your own, and you're a true legend in the genre of automotive here on YouTube. And I do have full respect. I see where you're coming from, and you are advocating. You want to give good advice to people that maybe have limited budgets, and you want to give good advice so that people can make good decisions so they aren't buying pieces of junk and getting wrapped up in undue expenses. I get it. Absolutely, there's a place for that. Where I'm coming from, guys, is the fact that we only live once. Life's too short to drive boring cars, and the fact of the matter is, drive what you like. Drive that fun car. If it's within your means, if you can afford it, be sure and be prepared for some maintenance and some increased costs, because it's not going to be the same cost to run a base Honda Civic as it is to buy a Nissan GTR. I mean, it's going to be different costs involved there. So be prepared for that. But I'm here to say life's too short, guys. enjoy every minute of the day. And as you saw in that one video previously, my son Marcus, he's also following in Papa's footprints, and he's loving the cars too. He's already talking about a WRX STI, seems to be his flavor right now. He likes that. He's got a personal love for those cars, but he does have a love. He's a bit of a petrol head himself already, and he's just turning 13. So obviously the future is bright for my little buddy, and you know what? Again, a chip off the old block, and all I can say is, guys, whatever you want to do, if it's an F-Type like this, and I really, really love this car, I still can't help tell you guys enough that there's still not another car I would have bought over this. I absolutely made the right choice. This car is impeccable. There are some little glitches and gremlins associated with owning these things, and we'll get into that in future days. But right now, I just had to sit down and I felt compelled to share with you guys my perspective when there's YouTube channels that are really hammering down and taking a run at some of the best drivers' cars. That's because they're easy targets. They're so exciting. It's easy to call a Ferrari ugly. Everybody knows they're beautiful cars, but it's easy to say they're ugly because it's a controversial concept, right? But at the end of the day, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. And again, with all due respect for Scotty, he is really a legend. And honestly, I can only aspire to grow to such size as Scotty's channel. But anyhow, guys, if you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear your ideas down below. What are your feelings? Obviously, Scotty and I are absolutely two different sides of the coin. He's the pure reliability. I'm the fun balance. So you guys, what are your thoughts? I mean, are you guys familiar with Scotty? Do you side more with his ideas and principles or theories? Or do you kind of more side with what I'm looking at and the feeling that life is short and really you've got to enjoy every day to its fullest? I'd love to hear your comments. And again, I will share one of your guys' comments on the next video next Sunday. And I hope to see you real soon. Catch you then, guys. Bye-bye.